I'm Laura Vinroot Poole, and this is What We Wore. Amy Larocca is an award-winning American journalist who spent 2 decades at New York Magazine. Her book, How to Be Well, takes a hard look at the wellness industry and its effects on women today. Congratulations on the new book. I also want to tell you, so the other thing that was so funny, we have a great friend in common, Sabina Schlumberger, who got us sort of back together. And I have to tell you about reading the book. So she gave it to me. She had an advanced copy and she had finished it and she gave it to me over lunch a while ago. And I started reading it. And the first night, an hour after, leaving lunch, I was just engrossed in it. And I texted her and said, this book is just beyond, I can't, it's too much. And I love it so much. And she said, oh, how wonderful. Tell me what's resonating, about it for you, or what's resonating. And I was like, I actually can't tell you anything because I have this poor book has been underlined like 1,000 things. It's pitiful. I can't give it back to her because every single sentence I was just like, yes, and that, yes.
Oh my
yes.
God. Thank you so much. That means so much to me because I have to tell you, when I was pitching this book, my agent is a man, and all the editors who were interested were women, but still, I think from a marketing perspective, a lot of the publishers kept saying, I don't understand. Are you for wellness? Are you against wellness? Is this like a guide? Is this a takedown? And I was like, no. You have to understand, we all live so deeply within this that it can't be like all one or all another. Like, we're just in it.
Yeah.
And no one I know wants either just like a guide or a takedown, because like either one of those things is
we're not going to quit.
Yeah, I'm not quitting. Like, I myself, I'm not quitting. But I also don't just want a guide that's like, yeah, it's going to fix everything. And yeah, do this, do that. Like, it's not that. No one lives that way.
Yes.
And I was so happy when I found like a few female editors out there and publishers who got that.
Well, let me ask you this, Amy, were they, and I think I'm a little older than you, but we're about the same age, number one. I think, were they about the same age as us?
Yes.
Okay, that, and then the other thing that I thought was really interesting that you and I relate on, I think, is that is the fashion background.
Yes.
Because I think it is so intertwined with fashion, which I never realized really until I read the book. I was like, oh my God. It's like so-and-so, this designer that stopped to do this. And this does, it is so intertwined with what we do.
It's so intertwined. And there's some really basic levels that I think we can be like very honest about that people don't want to be that honest about, like the kind of thin thing, right?
Yeah.
Like that people in fashion want to be really thin.
Yeah.
And I think let's just say it. Let's just say it out loud, right? Like,
yeah,
all these fashion people getting colonics, like, right? It's like, and they would be like, oh, you have to meet my colonic therapist. He cured my eating disorder. And I was a little bit like,
he gave you a new one.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like, am I allowed to point out that you're getting like colonics twice a week and you're only eating like green food in a certain sequence and starting afternoon? Like, I'm so happy for you that you're cured of your eating disorder. Like, what? Are we really having this conversation? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Like, sure. But that thinness is totally like the goal in a lot of videos, and that thinness is the goal of a lot of fashion, right? Like, let's just say it out loud.
Yeah.
And so that's like one obvious connection with fashion, but then also like the kind of elitism is another connection with fashion. You've been on the fashion circuit, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what it's like when people are like trading names.
Yes.
And like, oh, like, I've seen this doctor and I have this tincture, or like in Paris when the ballerina would come and she would do the sessions, right?
Well, that's the thing that sort of mortified me to be
like lifted bottom.
Yes.
Right?
And that's what mortified me in reading it, was that every single thing I was like, oh yeah, I know that. I did that. I did that.
Yeah, I did it all. Or like, you'd see like in New York, I remember when there was that guy and he had the like office near Union Square, and you could shake, like you could go on his thing and he would like shake your whole body. And then everyone was eating those like logs of goat cheese that you could get Square Farmers Market. So it was like an access thing.
Yeah.
And the hilarious interview with Amanda Chantal Bacon in Elle magazine, it came out like 10 years ago now. But it was like everybody had something from Prada. Everybody had something from Valentino. Everybody everywhere was live streaming the Prada show. So like, being in Milan and seeing the Prada show wasn't such a status symbol anymore. And then Amanda Chantal Bacon was like, for breakfast, I had ground pearl dust in my, you know, pounded copper cup that was made for me by this monk. And it was like this, suddenly it was like this new language, right? And it was like, who speaks this language and who knows these things? And it was like the kind of aspirational part of fashion just totally repackaged. And I really recognized that. And I really recognized that thing of having the insider knowledge and having that kind of, and it's a branding and a marketing thing. And I really was like, oh, I know this.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know this.
You really know this. Well, I love this quote. We've gotten very focused on perfectionism masquerading as wellness.
Yeah, definitely.
It's exactly that. Anyway, all right. Not anyway. I want to come back to that, but I want to actually start. I want to talk about your background and tell me where you're from.
So I am from New York area. I was born in Washington, D.C. We lived in Albany, New York when I was a little kid because my dad was involved in government and in New York State. And then I grew up in the suburbs of New York City on the North Shore of Long Island. And after a brief stint in Paris, I've been in New York City ever since. And since marrying my English husband about 20 years ago, we've been back and forth to London.
And what's your first fashion memory?
Oh my God. Well, I've got like a real fashion mom and grandma. My mom is kind of a New York City fashion legend at this point. Um, it's funny, when I worked at New York Magazine, I did this column called The Lookbook, which was a kind of really early street style thing. It was way before people did street style outside the fashion shows and things like that. And it was very definitively not outside fashion shows. We had a white seamless that we would put up anywhere and everywhere in the city. And sometimes we had real fashion icons and sometimes we just had random people whose style we loved. And the idea was to get people talking about what they wore that day when they set out. We never wanted people to dress up for us. Like we never would announce where we were going. And I don't know if you remember Gawker, but they became sort of obsessed with finding us.
Yeah.
And it became like a kind of thing where they would like sort of stalk us, and they had a column about it. And we ended up publishing a book of our columns. But in the kind of street style thing that happened, people became kind of obsessed with my mom. And all these like street style photographers were obsessed with my mom. And when my first daughter was born, I sort of couldn't bear to leave her, and she would come with her. She would come with me to the collections in Europe to hang out with my daughter while I went to shows.
Yeah,
the two of them became like a real favorite of street style photographers. So my mom has kind of legendary style, and
and what's it like, Amy?
So my mom has kind of wacky style, but before her, my grandmother also had kind of legendary style, but in a like kind of what my husband would call like an aircraft carrier landed on her head, and she would be in a Chanel suit with this my grandmother didn't wash her own hair, three times a week to the hair salon with a and a Chanel suit, that kind of look, never a color, white, beige. She never
wow.
actually, now that I think about it, but like neutrals and thing, a gray thing, and so they love to shop, and I always shopped with them, and they always were really sort of specific and impeccable in the way they dressed, and so my fashion memories are always like shopping with the two of them.
And it was actually watching them shop, or were they dressing you?
They were dressing me, and I definitely went through like my years of like I had to just wear like army pants and a Patagonia because like calm down, ladies,
Yeah. I have many years
but
of that.
I obviously found my way back, and I've always loved clothing, jewelry. Even when I was like, I just want to wear army pants and a Patagonia fleece, I was very, very, very specific in my choices.
Oh yeah. They had to come from the real Army Navy store, obviously.
Yes. And like it was always like, so even when I was being kind of like, no, I reject it, I was so specific,
Specific, yeah.
you
That
know?
sounds very familiar.
Do you know
And
what
so,
I'm talking about?
yeah, I do because I have them.
So I've never been like, I have friends where it's like, they genuinely like don't pay attention. And it just like, it boggles my mind.
And so, how did writing come into the picture? How did that meet with fashion?
I always wanted to be a journalist. I always wanted to be a writer. I never considered doing something else. I self-published a little at my tiny, tiny, tiny all-girls school in Albany, New York, where there were like 12 girls a year. I had a little newspaper
Wow.
that I self-published with my friend Amelia. And we like there was never anything else I wanted to do. I was
Huh.
the editor of the paper at Brown. I like that's all I ever wanted to do. And
And what did you love about it, or how did you
I
know about
I
it?
can't explain it. It was like
Hmm.
it's like in my body. Like there was never anything else I wanted to do. I was a big reader.
Uh-huh.
I love interviewing people. It's very funny. It's been very funny being on book tour and being on the other side.
Yeah.
I mean, I met you because I interviewed you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, uh, it was just always the thing it was just like, it was very normal and natural. It was like a magnet. It was like, that's what I'm doing.
And you were good at it because you're a great listener, and because you love stories. I mean, is that sort of,
I love stories.
yeah.
I mean, when I discovered that there was this field, and it was sort of while I was working on the book, and I was like, there's this thing called narrative medicine. And I was like, oh, well, if I knew that, I could have been a doctor. Um, and yeah, if you could make anything into a story, right? Like if you can
Yeah.
tell the story of illness through, if you can talk about illness through a story, and of course you can't, because that's, I think, what gets a lot of wellness people into trouble is
Right. Exactly.
is trying to fit, the story of bodies and illness into narrative, which it isn't always. But I think that can sort of happen in wellness, is you're like, oh, if I just say, like, it's like, when we were talking about the colonic people, like, yeah, if I place the lettuce before bodies don't
It's
work in narrative order all the time, but that's sort of what happens with wellness. But yeah, so I just always wanted to be a writer, and I always wanted to tell stories and hear stories. And I had this really good luck, which is my senior year at Brown. I was taught by a woman named Francine Duplessis Gray.
wow.
And yeah, and her her father, her stepfather, but really her father figure, had been one of the founders of Vogue. So she had an incredible background in fashion, obviously, and writing and fashion. And when I graduated, I went to Paris with her to be her assistant
Hmm.
as she finished a biography of the wife of the Marquis de Sade.
Huh.
And so I was her research assistant in Paris, and we had an amazing time. And I was like in the National Archives with her in Paris. And then the book was finished, and I went back to New York, and she helped me find a job. And she was the one, I obviously loved clothes, as we talked about, and I was very like into them. And in Paris, I ended up working. So this was 1997. So there
Mm.
wasn't really like a web,
Yeah.
so to speak. It was starting. But Yves Saint Laurent, weirdly, had put some money into a project that was covering the couture collections.
Hmm.
And it was like in real time, and writing reviews of fashion shows. It was called Fashion Week Live.
Huh.
And while I was working for Francine, I ended up writing reviews of fashion shows when I was 21. I didn't know anything. And I sort of dabbled in that. And then when I got back to New York, Francine introduced me to the owner of the New York Observer.
Uh-huh.
And it was a very wild place in the 90s. And they didn't have a fashion writer. And I was like, well, I've covered the shows in Paris.
Couture.
Yeah. So then I was covering the shows in New York.
Wow.
And then that led to a job at Vogue. And
Huh.
then I was hired at New York Magazine and stayed there for 20 years.
Rewind a minute. So, I mean, from the first though, I mean, at 21, writing about the shows. I mean, have you reread any of that?
I don't think they even archived them.
Yeah.
But I would thank God.
But I mean, like, were you opinionated about it? Did you even know?
I had no idea what I was doing, looking at, or
Did you
what.
show it to Francine? I mean, did you show it to any
I
of
mean,
your
did I show it to
professors?
Francine? I don't even know if I did. I mean, like, so I was sort of running back and forth between like doing the research for Francine and going to the shows or going to do a designer interview or whatever it was. And I remember learning certain things from Francine. Like there was always a kind of circus going on at the Cafe de Flore, but like the real like glamour, like the sort of left bank royalty ate upstairs.
Right.
So all the tourists would be downstairs, sort of hoping to catch a glimpse. Meanwhile, the real action at the Cafe de Flore was upstairs.
Or at Lip across the street.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so I would have these kind of translations or files or whatever other work I'd done for Francine. And I was always like delivering it to her upstairs at the floor. And I did go in one day and she was having lunch with Pierre Berger and, meeting all these kind of people as the, 21-year-old gopher. But, they'd invite me in to have, like, I remember going up one day when the Beaujolais Nouveau had arrived and getting to sit with Dean and Pierre Berger and deliver like these translations of things, that were really sort of like insane because it was the Marquis de Sade. So it was like, stuff about like the Marquis de Sade had come up with some sort of like thing he thought was an aphrodisiac, but had really given all the prostitutes like diarrhea. And and his wife had written a letter to her mother about this horrible incident, and like I had all these translations of it, and I was like, just sitting there with telling Francine and Pierre Berger about it upstairs at the Cafe Flore and thinking like, how did this happen? Like, this is the best thing ever, so getting to like do all of that. And I think knowing that like asking her to read my like weird, totally horrible reviews of some second-rate fashion shows was probably a terrible idea. And thank God they were not.
And what about your family? I mean, did your mom and your grandmother
have like they didn't have the web. Like
right.
They didn't have, what do I remember? I remember my mom like telling me to stop picking up French boys in bars. But yeah, they thought it was amazing. They were so happy I was getting to do it. Like they were, they thought it was great. But I don't think at that point, like I think I'd taken myself like hyper seriously when I was in college, like running the college paper. I don't think I thought that fashion journalism was what I was going to do. I think I thought of them as very separate.
Were you a journalism major?
We didn't have that at Brown. I was a literature major.
Okay.
So like I did the paper. I did the alternative weekly paper that we did with, I didn't do there were two papers. There was like an alternative weekly that we published with RISD students.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a daily paper. So I did the weekly. I've always liked that sort of like the slightly slower, like I would always think of myself as a magazine journalist rather than a newspaper journalist.
Because you had a week to do it rather than a day.
Like slightly longer form.
Right.
Rather than like a daily piece. But so it was called the College Hill Independent. And I didn't think I would like, I don't know. It didn't really occur to me that like, I always liked clothes and I always liked stuff, and it was really Francine who said, no, you can do sort of serious, interesting work inside fashion. Like she was definitely the person who was like, no, this can be serious, interesting work.
I mean, I think that's really important. Just from working in fashion for 30 years, I remember, I would say the first 10 years, it was so important to me for people to know that I wasn't just like a fashion person. This wasn't, Well,
I remember I interviewed Miuccia Prada once when she was doing that. It was like she did the Met Ball and it was like Prada and Schiaparelli.
Mm-hmm.
And I interviewed her right before it. And she said something about like really resenting the ways in which people didn't take fashion seriously.
Mhm.
And something about like women's decision to spend money on fashion as a luxury item, like was so dismissed, and men could spend money on cars or watches or whatever, like men's sort of so-called frivolous expenditures were treated with a sort of gravity that fashion wasn't.
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah.
So your first job out of college, I guess it was Vogue first, or internship at Vogue, and then
No, it was Francine in Paris, and then back to New York, it
yeah,
was the New York Observer, then it was
yeah.
Vogue, and then it was New York Magazine for 20 years.
And tell me about that. How did you find your way there?
New York Magazine called, and all I wanted to be was a new journalist, like Nora Ephron or Tom Wolfe, or, and that was where they'd been, right? And
Yeah.
um,
And so, what was the first role, Amy?
the first role, I had a column called Gotham Style,
Yep.
and I had a series of really amazing editors and a lot of freedom. I could pitch a cover story if I wanted. I could really just, the whole city was available. And that was so fun. Like there were no boundaries really. Anything I
Yeah.
wanted to do, I could do. So I had to write my Gotham Style column every week, but I could add anything I wanted to that. And it really opened up the city. Like, at that point I was only 24.
Oh my God.
Um, you know, and to be 24 years old and know that like anyone in the city would take your call, and you could sort of call up anyone and say, I'd like to interview you. I'd like to come see your show. I'd like to come, just
Wow.
everything was available and everything was kind of open. Was such an exciting and fun way to live in New York. And also they didn't mind if you freelanced. So things like Domino would call and say, would you do this piece? Or, I couldn't have written for the Times, or I couldn't write for the Times. I couldn't write for a direct competitor, but I could still write for Vogue. I could still, Glamour would call and say, can we fly you to LA to do a cover story on Scarlett Johansson? And I could say yes.
What a time to be. I mean, American fashion too, and just the whole
Yeah.
fashion in general. What an exciting time.
So I stayed and I eventually became fashion director.
And tell me what you loved about covering fashion.
I loved covering fashion, particularly for New York Magazine, because it was about fashion. Like, I mean, it was not in fashion, it was about fashion, if you can sort of see the difference. So for a while it was doing the lookbook, and it was street fashion and high fashion. And, I was going to couture, but I was also setting up my seamless on the street and talking to New Yorkers about what they were choosing to wear. But then I was also, interviewing Karl Lagerfeld in the Oak Tour atelier. So it was like the
Oh
whole
my God.
it was like the whole thing. It was like asking some crazy like lunatic on the street, like, what are you trying to tell us with what you put on? While also, interviewing Future Prada. So it was like the whole range. It was like everything about clothes and how people get dressed, and also
Wow.
the high art of making incredibly beautiful things. And it was just incredible. So it was like the full spectrum. And it was also like the kind of the zeitgeist of trends and how things are, like how and why people are drawn to things, and how it moves and how fashion moves through culture, and like why trends kind of like, I remember like the moment when, we were all so obsessed with Phoebe Philo, right? Like,
Yes.
and then Alessandra Michele came along,
Yes.
and like sitting in that room, and there were like, I remember he brought his collection to New York, and we were in Chelsea, and we were in like a garage in Chelsea, and he'd brought like all these rugs and these chandeliers, and the models were wearing like all these kind of layers, and it was like all anyone had wanted until that minute was like clean Phoebe
Yeah.
Philo, like
Yeah.
all these lines, and then all of a sudden just like feeling that switch and being like, what happened? Why did this happen? Why do I want to like throw everything on top of me now after, spending the past 5 years wanting
Yeah.
to be like spare lines? Like, what does that mean? What does that mean about where we are? What does this mean about femininity? What does this mean about us as women? How does that happen? How does that switch happen to us collectively? So, So I just liked all of it, you know, I just liked all
I
of,
love also that it's not really focused on the business of fashion. It's more I don't even know how to say it. It's like the personal experience
yeah,
of living.
living it, right?
Yeah.
Because and this is something I talk about in the book a little bit, where it's like, and this is a thing where I really see fashion and wellness intersect, where it's like we all have to get out of bed every day and get through life. And what are the things that help us do that and make it interesting? And I
Yeah.
think the line I use in the book is like elevate the banality of the everyday.
Hmm.
Fashion's certainly one of them. Wellness is as well. How am I going to make this interesting? How am I going to make this feel like something?
Hmm.
And fashion does that for us, and wellness does that for us too.
It does. I definitely. I mean, I think that's why I related the whole time. It was sort of a hand in hand the whole time. Wellness plus fashion.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to fix something. I'm just trying to, yeah. But it is. It's sort of
Get
this
through the day over here.
exactly. But it is, you know, and clothes really are sort of an armor to, well, protect you and build you up and make you feel better and all of the things. I mean, it really did. It was clear to me that wellness was the same. How did you know that it was time to move on from New York Magazine?
Well, I went through so much when I was there. Obviously, in 20 years, I started as a single 24-year-old. I left as a married mother of two, you know.
Yeah.
So I went through so much personal change. I left during COVID
Oh, wow.
when my first day there was Bush v. Gore. Um, And I left to go live in London with my family and put my kids in an open school after proving my utter uselessness as a
Homeschooler.
homeschooler. Yes. So I was like, where's there an open school? And so so it was a lot of things. The magazine had been sold. My beloved, you know, editor-in-chief had moved on. We had a different owner. It was a different enterprise, and I was a different person. So there were those, and I wanted to be based in London. Um, and I'd sold a book. So the writing was on the wall.
Yeah.
And actually, given even with all those circumstances, I had taken 1 year of a part-time contract from the new owners and then just didn't renew. I was like,
Yeah.
it's time to cut the cord. Um, So I wanted to write this book. I wanted to be free, which I hadn't been. Like I wanted to be like fully free.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't want to be like on a different time zone, taking
Yeah.
calls or closing pieces, which I'd never done before. So yeah, so it just was time, and I wanted to be fully focused on the book.
Will you share the career advice that you got from your mother-in-law around that time?
Oh yeah. So my mother-in-law is an absolutely incredible woman who I love very, very much. And she was the editor-in-chief of the London Review of Books,
Wow.
or she was one of the founders and she
Huh.
ran it until very recently. She actually left while we were living over there. So one of the reasons we were based over there for that period of time was to help her with that transition away from the paper, as
Mhm.
as we call it in our family. And she was in Paris with me, helping out with kids while I was doing collections. And I got a call to for a really big job. And well, not with the kids, she was helping with my older daughter, and I was massively pregnant with my younger daughter. And I got a call to be an editor-in-chief of a big magazine. And I was like, oh, is this like a dream job? Should I be wanting to do this? And I'm like waddling around the shows, and I've got a toddler. And she looked at me like I was crazy. She's like, well, you can't do that job right now. And I felt like that was like the exact opposite advice that I expected from like
Yeah.
a career woman, or it was kind of the exact opposite advice that like every sort of feminist, like I felt like the kind of feminist message you were always getting was like, well, you can do it all and you should do it all. And she was like, you've got to get your kids situated. And in 5 years, when your kids are sort of up and running, why don't you have this conversation then? And I was like, but they're calling now.
Mm.
She was like, they'll call again.
Yeah.
And it was so amazing to me that you were allowed to actually admit difficulty,
Hmm.
because I felt like so much of the kind of feminist messaging was that women could never admit frailty or difficulty or that things were challenging. You had to just say, oh no, I've got it.
Mm.
Oh no, it's no problem. And I was so grateful to her
And
and
relieved.
relieved. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing I didn't know was that a few months, 2 months from that conversation, my daughter would be incredibly sick
Mm.
and was born and hospitalized in the NICU for 3 months and then had home nursing for 6 months. And then there's no way I could have taken that job.
Yeah.
And it was impossible. Um, but even if that hadn't happened, I shouldn't have taken that job.
Right. Do you think that you'd have gotten the same advice if you'd been in New York and asked friends?
No,
Yeah, no, exactly.
absolutely not. And I think all of those same friends who would have told me, well, you have to take that job, of course, or would have felt the need to pretend to ignore the toddler at my side and the massive stomach in front of me, would have told me they worshiped my mother-in-law and that she was one of their career icons.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And also, don't you think that that perfectionism and the like, we can do everything. The wellness part is a big part of that. It's like trying to, I don't know if it's ameliorate, or I don't even know if that's the right word, but it's like we really can't do it, but we're trying to get the wellness part to make us able to do it.
Well, there was like, yes, I think you're completely right. And there was like, I remember once reading an interview with Gwyneth Paltrow, like the or a version of like, oh, we can be perfect. And she said something like, well, I love to hire working moms because like if I ever have anything really difficult, I say, give it to a working mom, she'll get it done. And I'm like, go easier on the working mom. Like, don't pile it on her. Like she's got enough to do. And then if you give it to the working mom, she's gonna feel like she has to say yes.
Yeah.
Because
Yes, because she can't be out of the workforce.
that's right.
Yeah.
And
Or
she's
she
gonna
can't
feel
show
like
weakness.
she can't show weakness and she
Mm-hmm.
can't show frailty or she can't ever say this is really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really difficult.
Yeah.
It's really hard, but we have to say like, oh no, who me? I have like this superpower. But like we have to be like better than, more than, more than. And
Yeah.
it's exhausting.
Well, there was one point when I did nearly throw the book across the room, not for you, but for an interview with somebody who's the person saying it's the same. I've heard it 1,000 times. It's the person saying like, I like to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to have some private time
Yeah.
and meditate. I'm just like, what are you talking about?
Oh yeah, I was thinking meditation course, and yeah. He's like, why don't you just get up at 4:30 to do your meditation? I was like, are you kidding me?
but haven't you heard it 1,000 times? You're like, who the hell can do that?
Say your alarm for 4:30 and just do a little quiet meditation. I was like,
no, I like to have coffee alone.
I'll never you.
But well, what an incredible mentor to have at the right exact moment. I mean, how rare is
Thank
that?
God she was with me in Paris because I would have like, I don't know. I feel like my New York friends would have strapped me into like a slimmer.
Yeah,
And
exactly. So tell me about what were the initial articles that you wrote that sort of inspired you to even think about writing the book?
it was really a piece. To be totally frank, I was like starting to think about like what would my next steps be like? Should I be thinking about moving on from the magazine? And I don't know. It was like I sat up in bed one night. I was like, I know what I'm going to do. It was really one of those moments. And I have a sort of best friend editor. And the joke about me at New York Magazine was I was always laying on the couch in his office, like reading gossip magazines and chatting. And I walked into his office and I got my spot on his couch and I said, I'm going to write a cover story in the wellness industry and then I'm going to sell it as a book. And he said, okay, let's do it.
I mean, I remember now
Yeah.
that you say that. Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Wow.
I don't know. I just saw it very clearly. I was like, this is taking over. this word, wellness, wellness, wellness. And I was like, that's it. And then as I wrote the story, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to organize this because it's too big. And I wrote the story and then took the story and I called my agent and I said, let's have lunch. I gave him the story and I said, can you sell this as a book? And he was like, it's too big. And he was right. He was right. And he said, I want 100 pages
Hmm.
before I try and sell this because it's so big. You're going to have to really show me and show publisher
Mm-hmm.
your plan. Because it's too big and there's too many ways it could go. So that took me a long time to really wade through it and say like, okay, here's 100 pages.
And what was the process like of this is your first book, is it? So what was it? What was that process like? Was that harder or
Really hard. It was
harder than writing articles? Was
so
it?
hard.
Huh.
It was so much harder than I expected. I was so flip when I said I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And then it was so hard. Yeah. I was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do this. Like laying on the couch
just
in Sarah's
because
office.
the cadence different and also just
And
like
also
the
because my agent was right. It wasn't a straightforward topic. And then COVID happened and everything just kind of like went berserk. And I had to like throw out a lot of what I'd done, start over, reconsider. I basically like wrote a book, threw it out, and wrote a new book.
well, I mean, I also think people's connection to wellness probably changed a lot in those
Changed
2 years.
so
Yeah.
much, so much. Yeah.
Yeah. So how many years of wellness experiments and interviews other than your whole life too, but
I
did you
did
put
five
into the book?
years.
Wow. And did
Yeah.
you know that it would take that long? Did
No, I
no.
thought it would take about half that.
Did you ever have a moment of wanting to walk away?
Yes. A
Really?
moment, a million. Yeah, so
Yeah.
many. And I was like, I even came up with like a whole alternative career for myself in the middle, but I didn't go through with it.
Why do you think that that so few of us have thought about or like challenging the wellness industry? Because I don't think we really do. I mean, women don't, I don't think.
I think because we're so conditioned to the beauty industry. I
Yeah.
think because like, and I think because we're so conditioned to this idea that we're supposed to be improving ourselves all the time
Mm.
and feeling less than, I think because we're so worried about caring for our families and looking after our families and making sure we're doing it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think for those reasons, and many others. I think there's so much fear that we're not doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a better way.
Yeah.
Um, I think we're also really conditioned to think that there's like a secret out there that someone else knows that they can tell us about ourselves. And we don't trust our own instincts. And that's not to say that we know best when it comes to medicine. You know, there's nothing I hate more than when someone says, oh, I'm not gonna do the cancer treatment, or I think I know, like I
Mm.
really do believe in doctors and I really do believe in science. But I also think there are certain things when it comes to wellness that's separate from medicine, um, where we kind of say, I don't know, this doesn't feel right, but I'm going to do it anyway because wellness.
But also you think about like even say OBGYNs and that there were, women just started to become OBGYNs
Yeah,
when our mothers were,
that's right. All of our
all
mothers
right.
had male OBGYNs.
Right. And so I do think the whole, I mean, I definitely, I'm 53 also. I thought the menopause discussion was really, really interesting because it is completely new and nobody's ever talked about it. Nobody's ever, even when I would ask my mom about it, she would say, oh, I don't remember. I don't, I have no idea because I don't think you were allowed to talk about it.
I think you weren't allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, and I think like there's this weird, like wild pendulum swing with the menopause thing that's happening right now, where it went from being like you couldn't talk about it, these medications are dangerous. Now it's like all we can do is talk about it and act like
Yeah.
the medications are going to fix everything.
Yeah.
And of course, the truth lies somewhere in the middle and is actually quite boring,
Yeah.
which is, which is like, okay, so it's probably going to suck. And there are some medications that are going to help you with some aspects some of the time.
Yeah.
But nobody wants that, right? Like everybody wants like these medications are going to be amazing. And of
Yeah.
course, like we're moving towards such a for-profit model with medicine that they're really being sold as these like magical cure-alls that are going to fix everything for everyone all the time. And a lot of times medicine's really dull.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, so this might help you with some of the temperature stuff, but it might not help with the anxiety, or it might not help with, I don't know, and it might help your friend, but not you.
Right.
Or it might help you for like a year and then stop working.
All of the
All of
things.
this is true, but like you're only going to get the message that like miracle cure,
Yeah.
woo, it's going to be amazing. And
Mm.
join this subscription website and it's going to cure all of your things in menopause. Doesn't have to happen for you.
Mm.
But menopause does have to happen for you. It's part of life.
Yeah, there was a great quote in there about basically like wellness is supposed to, not curb aging, but you're not really supposed to curb aging,
Yeah.
like
Well, it's like this thing where they keep saying, get you back to yourself, get you back to yourself. And it's like,
it's like
news for you. Like yourself is like a moving target, right? Like
yes,
yourself is aging if
yes,
you're lucky. And
yeah,
they
yeah,
keep
if you're
saying that,
lucky.
yeah. And they keep saying like in wellness, like, oh, we're gonna get you back to your pre-baby self. And it's like, well, I have a baby now. So what are you gonna do? Take my baby away? Like, I don't like your
Yeah,
premenopausal self. Well, guess what? Like I'm turning 50 this year. So I'm not going to get back to myself before I was 50 because like I'm going to be 50 in December and like whether I take this pill or not.
yeah,
So I would like to feel like the best possible version of 50, but the best possible version of 50 is not necessarily 28.
yes,
And so it's like fighting this losing battle all the time. And I think when you ask like why we do this all the time, it's because we're always being told, like if you're always chasing the getting back to yourself, getting back to yourself, and if you're always chasing, you are going to fail.
yeah,
And so if you're like always doing that, you're always going to be like buying more stuff,
yeah,
chasing, feel like you're failing, trying again.
yeah,
I think that's what sort of inevitably ends up happening. And that's why we're so like trapped in it. And I do not like take myself out of that equation. I am like in it. I am
yeah.
in it. And being able to see it doesn't mean you are not in it.
Well, I mean, that I felt that in reading the book. I was like, yes, I do that. Yes, I do that. My mom had breast cancer several times and ultimately died sort of from it, a, a, a version of it. So I have spent my whole life trying to run from breast cancer because I look just like my mom. I have and ended up actually getting it in the exact same place that she had it, had a double mastectomy. And I think that I can look back at those probably ages 25 to 49 when I had my mastectomy. It was chasing this thing that would, magically make that not happen to me.
Yeah.
And every single thing was like, maybe, this will make it not happen. Or if I eat this food, if I take this supplement, if I do this thing. And then when I finally got it, I mean, it's not fun, but it was almost a relief. And reading this book was so cathartic to me because I was like, oh yeah, that was at 35. I was doing that. That was at 37. I was doing that. That was when I was 44. I was doing that. All these things that just obviously didn't work,
Yeah.
and I'm probably more well than I've ever been, post that whole period and all of it. And it's an interesting, I guess my point is it's tiring. It's like really, really exhausting.
So do you feel released from?
It was the weirdest relief and release ever. I mean, I really, and I don't know, like I feel, it's interesting too, to work with all women and all women of all ages. I work with women from 18 to, my age and older. I was talking to somebody yesterday who's 44 and she was like, yeah, I'm having such a hard time sleeping. And I was like, I gave her a couple recommendations, but I said also, yeah, 44 to 47 were some of the worst years. I just was really uncomfortable in every single way. I had every single symptom, and some things helped, some things didn't, but really they kind of didn't help. Like you just have to like get through it.
Go with it.
Yeah. And you can't really, that people don't want that answer either, like they just,
of course.
yeah. Anyway, I had never thought about that really until reading the book about, that was my last 25 years was actually, it was trying to stave off this illness that I ended up getting that was not that bad.
That's amazing. And then the relief when it happens, if you're always expecting it, then the relief when it's there and you can actually deal with it.
Yeah. And it was like not that scary. It hurt. There were things I don't love about it, but it's over. Hopefully. I don't know. Hopefully. There was a great article. Ashley Baker wrote an article about GLP-1s and about, she was saying like, every single day is, should I have the sliced chicken or should I have the salmon or should I have, is all these things like what is going to, will these 45 calories make me look worse in a bathing suit? And just like a full all day long thing. And she said, the GLP-1 actually relieved that and what a freedom that was. And I sort of felt that about this book. It's like almost having breast cancer, was like the thing that was like, finally, I don't have to think about this anymore. Which I'm more healthy than I was before my whole life probably. But I think that what I realized too in reading the book is I'm more healthy I spend more time with my family. I don't worry about things as much. It's not about like a green juice.
Yeah. I brought my book to the Aspen Ideas Festival. I was super lucky. I got to speak there and got to hear some of these people speaking, and the chief science officer from Eli Lilly was there. And so he was, obviously talking about GLP-1s, and he said, he's a scientist. So he's thinking about like bringing this drug or bringing that drug. And he was talking about GLP-1s. Someone asked him what he found most surprising about it. And it was that thing you were saying about Ashley Baker, about you not thinking about the breast cancer. He said what he had not in any way anticipated hearing from patients was the food noise, the elimination of the food noise that they described as the biggest improvement to their lives.
Yeah.
That they liked being thinner, they liked being healthier, but what they liked was the improvement to their mental health that came with the elimination of the food noise.
Well, and in reading that, I was like, I don't know one woman that doesn't consider that every single meal of every single day. Like should I put a pat of butter on my oatmeal? It will taste better, but it could make me have a heart attack. You're just like, what?
Yeah, you're at the restaurant. You're like, I really don't want the fish. I really want the pasta. I'm gonna have a better time.
Yeah. What's been the most meaningful feedback that you've received from a reader?
There's been so much, and it's been kind of amazing going to so many different places, because people have reacted in so many different places. Like, I brought the book to Louisville. I brought the book to Montecito. It's been like
You're bringing it to Brentwood.
I'm bringing it to Brentwood. I'm so excited.
I am too.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And I think it's really like, God, the most meaningful feedback from a reader. It's been so varied. I think it's mostly just having these conversations with women like you, where it's like we get to have these conversations and say, oh yeah, it's not all one thing. It's not all another. We're all kind of in it. It resonates because we can kind of laugh about it and also know that it really means something, that we've all been in this struggle. Because I think you can feel really alone. Like, am I the only one who feels
because you're not sharing it. You know.
Like, is everyone else Gwyneth?
Well, and I also think that back to menopause thing too. One thing that I really noticed in my 40s was that I really had every single symptom, and I would ask even my best friends. I would say, are you having that problem? They'd be like, no, I don't know. That's not happening.
What are you talking about?
No. Then you just stop asking because you're just like, okay, I guess it's just me.
So I think it's just been really nice to be like, oh yeah, no, we are all, this is
We're all doing this.
we're all doing it. And we're all super conflicted and like we're all sort of just ugh, like we
Yeah.
all do this. It's okay. Like you do what you got to do. I'm gonna do what I got to do, and like it's fine. It's totally
Yeah.
fine. We're all just trying to get through the night here. Like, you know, and to just try and like have a totally like judgment-free zone where you do what you got to do, and we're all just like trying to and raise daughters to be slightly less insane than we are and
Well, that's what I was going to ask. What do you most wish for your daughters?
to be slightly less insane than we are. I mean, I just want them to like when we talk about like the elimination of the food noise, like I just hope that they have less of that noise in their heads and can move through all of the things that they're sold with a little more confidence to say, yeah, no, it's not for me.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to spoiler alert. I mean, I hate to talk about the last chapter, but I thought that was that was the most helpful of all of it. It kind of brought it to, it was kind of like, yes, you've been insane for 20 years, and just calm down and spend time with your family.
And have a nice time. Yeah, I really hope so. And I mean, and that's really all I hope for them is that like they're going to get bombarded. They already do get bombarded. They're 12
Yeah,
and 14 and they're bombarded
with drunk elephant.
with drunk elephant. I mean, I did teach them to so it's like, they have their allowance and it's like, well, if you spend all your money at Sephora, you're not going to have anything left to go for bubble tea with your friends, right? Like,
Right.
or you could spend your money once at Sephora, and when it runs out, we could put the Cetaphil in the drunk elephant containers, and you could go to get bubble tea after school every day. And they're like, yeah, that sounds cool. So I feel like we've had one small victory.
I love it. Is your mom still with us?
Yeah, both my parents are.
And tell me about your mom, what she thinks about the book.
They love the book. I mean, I think some of it is I think some of it is hard, to be honest, for her, because I think some of these things are religion to her. I think some of the food restriction and that kind of thing is gospel for her and for her generation. So I think, I don't think they question. And I think that's been hard for her to hear me question it, because I think those things were taught to me as the sort of cost of being a woman.
And I loved also you're talking about Kenneth, the salon, and the chemicals. Nobody asked about it when they were spraying.
Yeah. So I think that, ideas around like food restriction, presenting your best self, not asking, not doubting, things around like deprivation and self-presentation, I think are just you don't question. So I think reading some of that, I think she's been magically supportive and excited and all the rest of it. But I don't know that some of my kind of questioning of it has been easy.
Well, one last question for you, and it has to do with clothes. What did you wear to your prom in Albany, New York?
Well, at that point I was in Cold Spring Harbor on the North Shore of Long Island. And it was 1993. And the Laura Ashley vibe was still going strong.
Yes.
But I did not want to wear Laura Ashley. I had stopped with the Laura Ashley by then, but my classmates
had not.
So my mom and I went to Soho, and I wore a black Vivian Tam. Remember
Cool.
Vivian Tam?
Yes.
Okay, so it was like tight black, like it was like a stretchy black Vivian Tam with like a sheer black overlay.
Yes.
Like, you know?
Yes, yes. I think I know this dress basically. Yes.
Yeah. It was like and it was mini.
Cute.
it was like a skin tight black Vivian Tam mini dress with like a sheer black overlay. I wore lip liner, darker than my lipstick.
Uh-huh.
I wore my hair sort of straight, and then we got these like big earrings, big hoops, and BCBG platform sandals.
Nice.
My date's mother had him pose for pictures with one of the girls in Laura Ashley.
No.
Yes.
I love that.
Yep. I could not wait to leave. And then I spent my summer in Paris.
I'm going to need a picture of that.
You know what? I'm going to be out when I go to my parents' house in Sag Harbor. I think I know where the picture is. But the picture is of me alone because the boy had to pose with one of the girls in her, like, you know, Bride of Warren Jeff's outfit.
Exactly. Oh my God. That is so funny. Because I wore Laura Ashley. And the next year I wore a little tiny black dress. So.
Yeah, the year before, like, you know, I think there were these like dances that happened, you know, that were like an outgrowth of dancing school, you know, with the white gloves.
Yes,
and
yes.
I wore Laura Ashley through all of that. And then I was just like, you know,
like,
Laura Ashley, like, I'm done.
Yeah, this is over.
I'm going to Paris. I'm going to Brown in the fall. I'm going to Paris. Like, I'm not dressing like a Mormon wife. Like,
I love
it. My mom was like, let's go to Soho.
I love it. Oh, thank you, Amy, so much.
Thank you, Laura. This is really fun.
It was really fun for me. Thank you.